Brother Ballam is the author of over 40 publications and recording in international distribution. He starred in 3 major motion pictures and appears regularly in television. He serves on the board of directors of 12 professional arts organizations, and in 1996, he was designated one of the 100 top achievers in the state of Utah by the then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher of the United Kingdom. He was appointed artist extraordinaire by the governor of Utah. He currently serves as the general director of the Utah Festival Opera, a company he founded in 1993. It has become one of the nation's major summer festivals with growing national critical acclaim. With all of his professional and academic achievements, he is most comfortable at the bedside of a terminally ill patient, singing a favorite melody of hope, or volunteering in the classroom, enlightening children to the magic and wonder of Mozart and Beethoven. Once he visited a man in a rest home whom the nurses have warned him about. He was surly, he was rude, rambunctious. Brother Ballam asked the man about his background, and learning that he was from Germany, belted out the man's favorite songs in German. The man sang quite right along with him. Once he visited an elderly lady in the rest home who was suffering from Alzheimer's. She was incoherent, remote most of the time, but when Brother Ballam showed up to sing, she was talking, animated, and communicated. And when he was gone, she went back to her lost world. I got to see this firsthand as I am the teacher of gospel doctrine in our Laie First Ward. And as you know, we are studying Doctrine and Covenants. And in that section, section 76, when we were talking about the witnesses to the book, he asked me if I would mind if he sing a couple pieces of music that might help bring it to the hearts of the students. He sang, "For We Saw Him." And from section 122, the words of comfort from a loving Heavenly Father. To Joseph Smith, he also sang, "Know Thou My Son." We were touched, moved, edified for this generous gift that he gave. He's more than an entertainer, says President Thomas S. Monson. He got a heart of gold. He does it quietly. He doesn't make a show of it. He believes in music and its goodness. Lori, his wife, and their 6 children, he once said to her, "If there is one thing I want to be remembered for, and that is to be on my headstone, that he was a kind man." When he asked me to introduce him, I emailed him back and I said, "Brother Ballam, from the numerous sites, websites that is dedicated to you, your accomplishments, and what you have done throughout the world, what would you want me to let the audience know about you?" And he emailed back that I'm your friend and that I am Elder Ben Ballam's father. So brothers and sisters, ladies and gentlemen, Ben's father, my friend, and soon will be yours, Elder Michael Ballam.
You have just been witness to the Aloha spirit. When we came to Hawaii, when I was absolutely sure we had come to the right place at the right time for the right reason, it was sitting at the feet of Kalela as she gave the gospel doctrine class. And I knew we had come to a very special place. We have a lot of things in common. We both have leaky plumbing that goes from here to our hearts. I cry at the drop of a hat. In fact, I've been known to cry over a good breakfast. The other thing that we have in common, Sister Lombard and I, is that we both use fans. I was born in the middle of a hot flash, and I've never come out of it. I am wearing this coat out of respect to you. We'll see how long it lasts. But I am wearing it in part because I feel the keen responsibility today to be in your presence and to occupy the time that we have here together to share. You could be doing a lot of things, and my hope is that I can be an instrument through which the Spirit can talk to you in some way. I've been very apprehensive about coming here today. I wasn't feeling extremely calm until I walked into the building and Mr. Bach was being played on the organ. I have a deep love for J.S. Bach. Everything he wrote was religious. And on most of the pieces he wrote in the top, J, J. Now, unless you know what that means, it's just two letters, two similar letters. It means Juxat Jesu, which in Latin means Jesus be with me. And at the end of most of his pieces are the initials I-N-D, in nomine Deum, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ. Amen. So most of what Bach wrote were prayers. He was a very special man. He wrote more music than anybody of history, was never paid for any of it. He wrote it all for the glory of God. I wanted my children to have a right opportunity to meet with all of my European friends, and so we started at the top of Europe and worked our way south to Italy. I wanted them to meet all of my old, dead composer friends. And I took them to sites that they would feel the spirit of Mozart and Beethoven and Schubert and Puccini and Verdi. Coming to see where Bach was in Leipzig was challenging because the war had a devastating blow to the city of Leipzig, and it had not recovered by the time we were there. The roads were all torn up, and it was impossible for me to take Ben in his wheelchair. He was younger then, and I could pick him up and carry him. Can't do that as easily today, but in those days I picked him up and carried him towards the church, St. Peter's Kirche, St. Peter's Church, where Bach spent essentially half a century in that town and Leipzig to write music for God. Unfortunately, the church was covered with scaffolding and plastic and plywood. It did not resemble a church at all. And I was a little downhearted. We'd come such a long way. As we walked in the front door, which then was two pieces of plywood on hinges, we walked into a little area that was covered with plastic so that the dust from the construction in and out would stay contained. And as we stepped into that spot, Ben said to me, "Stop." He was 3 years old. "Stop." And I said, "Why, Ben?" "We need to pray," he said. Now, he had no idea we were in a church. I said, "Okay, why?" He said, "Because Jesus is here." Ben has known Jesus' presence since he came to the earth. He has a very special relationship, and he feels the Spirit very deeply. I am here to testify to you that the Spirit of Jesus Christ was there. Why wouldn't it be? A man who dedicated his life to praising God through music. Do you know his music? You should, because if you do, it will be artillery for you in these challenging days as we need to build a shield around ourselves of light to combat the challenges that are coming forth in the latter days. Bach can do that. He was very close to the Spirit of God. On June 23rd, 2000, President Hinckley turned 90 years of age, and the church decided they wanted to have a birthday party for him. He was very uncomfortable with that idea. He said, "No, let's not make any fuss. People turn 90 all the time." But some of the members of the Quorum of 12 said, "President, the church would very much like to celebrate with you. How about a concert?" "Oh, now a concert. That's a different story," he said. President Hinckley loved music. He said, "A concert. I like that idea." So they said to him, "Choose 5 singers, and we'll have the Tabernacle Choir and the Symphony Temple Square play." I and my daughter were 2 of those 5 performers who were asked to sing. That was not my first association with President Hinckley. I met him for the first time on March 17th, 1988. I remember the day because it was Ardith Capp's birthday. She was the president of the Young Women's at the time and one of my heroes. And I went to visit her on Temple Square in her office to sing Happy Birthday for her. When I completed singing Happy Birthday, she said, "Come with me. President Hinckley loves singing." And before I knew it, I was standing in front of Gordon Bittner Hinckley. I don't know how I got there, but there I was, standing in front of him in his office. I said, "President, could you use a song?" And he said, "I sure could." "Which one?" "Oh, Danny Boy," he said, and my heart dropped to my toes. Oh, I knew "Oh, Danny Boy." Any tenor worth his salt should know "Oh, Danny Boy," but I could never get through it. As I explained, Sister Lombard and I have the same challenge of having saline solution come very close to the surface and course down our cheeks when we're moved by the Spirit. And that song had always done that. I'd never been able to get through it. But I was being asked by a prophet, seer, and revelator. I said, "Why that song, President?" He said, "That song may well be the reason that I'm here today." "Could you explain that a little bit more?" He said, "Yes. I was called to the Preston, England mission. I was a catastrophe. I was probably the worst missionary the church had ever sent out. I knew it, and I wanted to go home. I wrote home to my father saying, 'I'm wasting your money and my time, and I'm going to come home.' My father wrote back and said, 'Gordon, forget yourself and get to work.' Good advice," he said, but I still felt that I needed to go home. He went out by himself to seek passage on a ship to come home when he heard someone in the streets of Preston singing, "Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling." It's a song of a parent to a child who has gone away for a specific purpose. And the parent is telling the child how much they love them and how much they trust them. And the words of that song touched him so deeply that he sat down on the curb and cried. He went back and did exactly as his father said. He forgot himself and got to work. And he became the prophet, seer, and revelator of these important days. What is it about music that can do that? "Oh, Danny boy, the pipes are calling, from glen to glen and down the mountainside. The summer's gone and all the flowers are falling. It's you must go and I must bide." Exactly what his father was saying. "But when ye come and all the flowers are falling, and on the wider, sweeter bee." The second verse talks about you may come back in the summer, you may come back in the winter. It doesn't matter. If you come back in the winter or the summer, I will be here because, oh, Danny boy, I love you so. Now, the third verse is the killer. It's the one that goes like this. "And when ye come, and all the flowers are dying, if I am dead, as dead I well may be. You'll come and find the place where I am lying, and kneel and say an Ave there for me. And I shall hear, though soft you tread above me, and all my grave shall warmer, sweeter be. For you will bend and tell me that you love me, and I shall sleep in peace until you come to me. What is it in that music that would touch the heart of a very discouraged missionary? It's the Spirit of God, which sometimes comes in the form of a fire burning. Sometimes it comes in the form of a sweet whisper. We all are entitled to it. Music has the power to bring it to us very, very well. So President Hinckley decided that I should open the program with a song that was written in 1929 called Without a Song. I was happy to do that. I loved the piece. I went down to the conference center. The conference center had not yet opened. It had never had an audience. This was the day before the concert, on June the 23rd. As you know, that's a very big building, and it was designed to have no acoustic. What I mean by that is if I were to go in that building without the speaking system on, you would not hear it anywhere. It was designed by an engineer so that it has no acoustic whatsoever. And then there are thousands of speakers set throughout the building so that simultaneously we all hear the sound at the same moment instead of the echo effect, which would make it completely impossible to hear a speaker. I went to the rehearsal, and they had not gotten all the bugs out of the speakers, so there was no acoustic in the room. They said, don't you worry, tomorrow it'll all be set up, the people are here, they'll turn it on tomorrow, it'll be no problem. You stand here, the orchestra is over there. They were in another zip code. And the conductor, I could barely see him as he began the introduction. I couldn't hear what it was at all. But having relative pitch, I chimed in and watched his stick move, and we ended at approximately the same time and place. Let me just say it was not the most comforting experience I've had on the stage, and tomorrow was the performance. I was very, very nervous. I got there, and there was a prayer meeting before with President Hinckley, Gladys Knight, who was one of the singers, and the four others of us. And I had been with President Hinckley when he met Gladys Knight. He didn't quite understand the magnitude of her popularity, but he knew she was famous. She had just joined the church, and he said, Sister Knight, what do you think of the church? She said, oh, it's true, President, it's true. But you guys sing like a bunch of tired cows. Obviously, she'd never heard a Tongan choir. He laughed and he said, well, Gladys, maybe that's why you're coming into the church, to teach us how to sing. He asked her to offer the prayer, and it was a beautiful prayer. And I was the first one up at bat. I would be the first person to utter a sound in the new conference center. That was not necessarily an asset in how I was feeling. I was shaking like a leaf. My daughter said, Dad, are you nervous? Are you nervous? No. This is just another opportunity to sing. I was shaking so badly, I felt like a cat in a room full of rocking chairs. And then as I was ready to go out, Brother Ballam, to the stage, please. And then a frantic fellow came back saying, everyone, I need to tell you something. The church is using a new technology. They've never used it before. It's called high definition. We're going to be broadcasting this throughout the world. President Hinckley wants it recorded and distributed throughout the world. We're going to be doing close-ups of you. We'll be able to see every pore on your face. So whatever you do, don't sweat. Those were the last words I heard as I walked out to sing the song I'm about to sing for you. I was scared, literally spitless, and for a singer that's bad. But as I walked into the room, I felt the greatest power of the universe. Love. It is the greatest power of the universe. This was a special kind of love. It wasn't coming at me. It was filling the room. It was coming to the president. The love from 22,000 people who loved him so. And it was also filled with love from a larger sphere. That kind of love is omnipotent, all-powerful. And I calmed down because I was in the presence of such love. You can calm down too if you can make sure you can get yourself in the presence of his love. So this is what I sang. I love this technology. The first night we were here in Laie, Elder Oaks spoke. You may recall he had one of these too, and he wasn't too excited about it. He said that the brethren were all asked to get used to this technology. It has all their speeches and everything on it, so they needed to take it around. He called it an infernal machine. I guess you all know where the inferno is. And when it works, it's absolutely wonderful. And when it doesn't, without a song, the day would never end. Without a song, the road would never bend. When things go wrong, a man ain't got a friend. Without a song, that field of corn would be deserted now. That field of corn would never see a plow. A man is born, but he's no good no how. Without a song, I've got my trouble and woe, but sure as I know the Jordan will roll, I'll get along as long as a song is strong in my soul. I'll never know what makes the rain to fall. I'll never know what makes the grass so tall. I only know there ain't no love at all without a song. What would the world be like without music? Thank you. I gave you about 4 seconds to answer that question. What would it be like? How important is music to our Father in heaven? Well, he's used it throughout all time. He created the earth with it. You may say to yourself, what's he saying? I said he created the world with it. He did. Aristotle and Plato, thousands of years ago, told us that the solar system was held in balance because of a chord of music, vibrations, that held it in its orbit. We didn't know that was true until Bell Laboratories in the 1950s were able to calibrate the vibrations of all the planets. We have one here on Earth. There's one that is an octave apart, Venus, Mars. Jupiter has a big one. They all vibrate, a very special vibration. And putting them together does actually create a chord. The universe is held together by celestial music. That's not just a pretty phrase. Life is created by vibration, organized vibration. I have a friend who's a coroner. He spends his life declaring people dead. Somebody's got to do it. I asked him, how do you really know somebody is dead? He said, when their cells stop vibrating. So how do you know life begins? When the cells begin to vibrate in an orderly fashion. Orderly fashion. Orderly vibration. That is music. All of us have an orderly vibration going on in our cellular structure right now. They're all different. Some of them will be enhanced by some music. Some of them will be injured by some music. And at some point, that vibration may stop. But it could be reignited with another sympathetic sound. Have you ever wondered why Moroni is holding a trumpet atop the temples? I don't think he was in a jazz band. And we shall all be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the sound of the last trumpet. I don't think that's just an idle phrase. I have a feeling that through the science that only God understands, life can be regenerated, that vibration of life can start through his instigation. Moses used music. He sang the scriptures. There's the first chapter, first verse of the Old Testament. He never spoke it. Jews don't speak the scriptures. They're too holy. Jesus never read the scriptures. He sang them. He chanted them. And when he comes back, he'll do it again. And we will recognize his voice, those of us who know him. And we will all be asked to sing with him. It will be enlightened unto us. How important was music to Lehi? His first vision? He saw God seated with his son, and a concourse of angels were singing about him. Nephi saw the same vision. He saw a concourse of angels. David became king of Israel because he had skill upon the harp. Was that not beautiful this morning? Celestial sounding. And David played upon his harp, it says in the book of Samuel, and the evil spirits departed from King Saul, and he was made well. Music caused evil spirits to leave somebody, and he was made well. Hold that up here for a moment, if you will. Can music have that power to drive out evil? I've come here to answer that question, but not quite yet. Jesus Christ, was music important in his life? And suddenly there was with the angel a multitude of heavenly hosts praising God and singing, Gloria in excelsis Deo et in terra pax omnibus. Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill toward man. I don't know what the language was, but that was the essence. Who was that choir? You. Me. You think we had something better to do that night? We were so excited that the plan was moving forward, that the Son of God, God himself, was going to descend and be made man in the flesh. We were so excited, all we could do was sing together. And we'll do that again when he comes back, all of us. We'll know the hymn, we'll know the tune when he comes back. We'll know. Joseph Smith, how important was music for him? First revelation to a woman in this dispensation was put together a hymn book. That was the first revelation to a woman, put together a hymn book. What was the last thing Joseph Smith did? He asked his friend John Taylor to sing a poor wayfaring man of grief 3 times. And during the recitation of the 3rd time, the first bullet came through that door in Carthage. Why? Why did Jesus, before he went out into the Mount of Olives to be betrayed, sing a hymn with his friends? It was the last thing he did with his 11 friends. When a new prophet is called in our dispensation, the 14 apostles come together in the Holy of Holies of the Salt Lake Temple, and they sing a hymn. And then they sustain and call the new prophet. Why? Why is it that important? Because it comes from him. He invented it. He created it. He perfected it. And it is a conduit through which his Spirit can speak to us here in the heart, which is better than here in the brain. Music goes directly to the heart. Music has always been my life. I wanted to spend my life as a musician professionally. When I was in the 8th grade at South Cass Junior High School, Utah State University sent a young student to begin a program called Vocational Guidance. It never happened before. And one by one, he called each of the students out of the room, our social studies room, and he sat us down across from him and said, "What do you want to be when you grow up?" And then he'd write down on a form what you wanted to be. He wasn't ready for me. "What would you like to be?" he asked, and I said, "I want to be an opera singer." He said, "You can't." I said, "What do you mean? I can't. You never heard me sing." "Well, you just can't." "Have you ever even seen a professional opera?" "No." "Have you ever known anybody who made their living exclusively from singing opera?" "No." "Have you ever heard of anybody from Utah making their livelihood singing opera?" "No." "Then what makes you think you can't?" "Because I will." He said, "Well, you can't." And I said, "Why not?" He said, "Because it's not on this list." And it was not on the list. It's still not on the list because statistically it's impossible for a kid from River Heights, Utah, to end up singing on the stage of the Metropolitan Opera. It's statistically impossible. But since I didn't know that, I just went ahead and did it. Why? Because I had a belief in something. It came from a teacher by the name of Tilda Mae Polson. Tilda Mae Polson taught at South Cass Junior High School. She taught everybody's older brothers and sisters, parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. In fact, I think she was teaching English when Noah got off the ark. We drew section 8, 1, 2, 3. 8, 1, 2, 3. She was 8-2. If you pulled 8-2 out, then you were in her class. What are the odds that I would pull 8-2 out of the fishing bowl? Those are good odds that I wouldn't. But I pulled out 8-2. I had heard about Tilda Mae Polson. I was scared to death of her. I arrived in class, seated myself, and then I heard for the first time the sonorous voice of Tilda Mae Polson. "Ladies and gentlemen," she said. I wondered, who's she talking to? We've never been called that. "You may be under a false impression that I am here to teach you English. I am not. I am here as a resource for you to learn English." There's a big difference. Think about it. She said, and I wondered, this is really important what she's saying to us. Why isn't she standing up from her desk? Then I realized she was. Why was everyone so afraid of her? Because she expected responsibility. She said, "Every day I will call the roll. I do not care if you are here or if you are not here. I care to know if you are prepared or unprepared. I will give you homework every day because, you see, life is about homework. It's about what you learn in the home. And so you will do your homework, and I want to know if you are prepared or unprepared, so do not answer here. Answer me whether you're prepared or unprepared." Well, she started the next day, and there was a fellow in the back of the room who figured he could break this system. And so, as she called his name, he said, "Prepared." Now, I don't know how it was that she knew that he knew that she knew that he knew that she knew. But she pulled her glasses down like this, and these two laser beams came out of her eyes and went right into his and bore a hole in his head, and he broke down and said, "Unprepared." None of us ever challenged the system again. And she thanked him. She said, "I have respect for you for being honest." Then she gave us an assignment to learn a poem called Invictus by William Henry Hensley. She told us that when we were prepared, we should all stand up and give the poem. I wanted to be the first one up at bat. Not because I'm an overachiever. I am not. I'm a coward. And I get too scared waiting for everybody else to go through it. Plus, I figure if you're the first one out there, there's nobody to compare you to, right? So I wanted to be the first one up, and I raised my hand. I said, "I'm prepared." I got up, and from memory I began, "Out of the dark that covers me, dark is the pit from pole to pole, I think whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul." "What does that mean?" she said. Well, she didn't tell us. We had to know what it meant. She said, memorize it. So I had to think fast on my feet. It means that only we can conquer our soul. All right, she said, go on. The poem ends by saying, I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. She said, I don't believe you. Say it again. Make me believe it. I am the captain of my fate. I am the master of my soul. I don't believe you. Say it again so I believe you. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. I don't believe. I said it so loud they could hear it all the way to Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then I sat down, quivering. She said, there's an important principle here. Your destiny was given to you before you came here, and only you have control of it. Do not give your destiny away to anyone or anything. She defined the things as being drugs. In those days, I thought she was talking about Tylenol. Alcohol, I understood. She said, a little glass of alcohol, it has no power at all. No power. Until you take it into yourself, and then you have given your destiny to it. It now has control of your destiny, and it doesn't care about your destiny. Sexual behavior, she said, is the same sort of thing. It's a glorious thing. It keeps the world going. It's the procreative powers with God. As long as you're in control of it, it's a wonderful thing. If, however, you let it take control of you, it takes over your destiny, and it doesn't care about your destiny. If you have friends who would ask you to do things that are contrary to getting you where you want to be, they are not your friends, and you are giving your destiny to them. Do not do that. She left something off the list because it wasn't there in the 60s. The arts. The arts have the power of fulfilling our destinies or destroying our destinies. There are forms of art, motion pictures, literature, paintings, that can pull us down, get us off track from where we need to be going. There is music that can take us away from that path as well. But you see, this was in the 60s, and it wasn't highly defined as it is today. As with any good thing, there is always the chance of the reverse. Isaac Newton's third principle is about whenever there's an action, there's going to be a reaction. Whenever there is a good thing, the powers of evil will use it as well. Television is a wonderful thing. It enables the general authorities to speak to the entire world simultaneously twice a year. It also allows the power of darkness to send out messages constantly that pull people down and destroy their destinies. Music is a prime example of that. My grandfather sent me a letter one day when I was in New York City after my career was really blossoming and going, and I was feeling good about myself, and Grandpa wrote me a letter. And he said, Michael, the Lord gave you your gifts for a purpose. And I am worried that unless you start using them for his purpose, more than you are presently, you may become as sounding brass and tinkling cymbals. I know all about sounding brass and tinkling cymbals. That's what Paul said to the Ephesians. He was saying, your life is nothing but shallow pretense. And my grandfather would say this to me. My grandpa, who watched me practice and practice and practice, watched me go through school. Laurie put me through graduate school. I had a PhD. I was now singing everywhere. How could he say this to me? When I saw him next, he came to me and threw his arms around me, which was very unlikely for him, and he began to weep. He said, I'm so sorry. I'm just an old man. Will you forgive me for what I said? I said, no. There's no reason to forgive you. You were right. And from that time forward, I have tried, to the best of my abilities, to consecrate the gifts that I possess, just like the gifts that everyone in this room possess. I've tried to concentrate them to the kingdom. I have some great heroes. Esther from the Old Testament, a young lady who just by her physical beauty was brought in to the kingdom. She became queen of the greatest kingdom the world has ever known. Her uncle said to her, you got to go talk to your husband, the king. You've got to tell him to stop this law where they're killing off our people. She said, I can't do that. The law says I cannot go to him unless invited. Her uncle said, you've got to. Haman, one of his men, are killing us because we will not bow down to him. Because we're praying to Jehovah, we're being put to death. You've got to talk to your husband. I can't, she said. I'll be put to death. You must. You have been sent here for such a time as this. This is the moment You were placed on the earth for this moment. You are going to save our people. The very name Esther, Hadassah it is in Hebrew, means she saved our people. She went to the king after having prepared a wonderful meal for him. There's a great lesson there, ladies. She prepared a wonderful meal for him. He said, "What do you want, Esther? You can have anything you want, including half my kingdom." She said, "I want you to stop killing the Hebrew children for praying." What? What? That's happening? Yes, in this kingdom because of Haman. Is this true, Haman? He said. Yes, Your Majesty, I had that law instituted. And the king said, "Haman, that is a terrible law, and I'm going to kill that law, and you with it." And he did. And the children of Israel were saved because of a pretty girl who was placed there at such a time as to make that happen. Paul the apostle, because he was a Roman citizen, could speak many languages. He was called to be an apostle at the death of Judas Iscariot. He didn't want the job. Remember the story on Damascus Road? He didn't want the job. Why did the Lord call him forth? Because he had the talents that were needed at that particular moment in time. He was called for that specific moment in time, and so were you. And so was I. What is our destiny? How do you find it out? You can find it out through a patriarchal blessing, a father's blessing. You can find it out by being in tune with the Spirit. How do you do that? There are two beings in the universe who know your destiny. One loves you for it. He gave you the skills and the talents to fulfill your destiny. He loves you for it. He wants you to fulfill it to your very utmost. There's another being in the universe who's very powerful as well, and he hates you for it. He knows what you're capable of. He knows the past, present, and future. Unlike you, unlike me, Satan has knowledge of the past, present, and future. We do not, because we need to walk by faith. And he knows who you were, he knows who you are, and he knows who you may become. And he will do everything in his power to stop that. And he has great power. How do you combat that? There's only one way. There's only one way to combat darkness. What is it? Light. You surround yourself with light. How do you do that? I'll tell you how you do that. You know those 13 tenets that Joseph Smith told a fella who was editor for the Chicago Democrat? He wrote down 13 things that Mormons believe, and that 13th one is huge. That's the one about the part about being chased by an elephant. You know, we believe in being chased by an elephant, that part. Remember what it says at the end? If there is anything virtuous, praiseworthy, good report. We seek after these things. Why do we seek after these things? Why do we have to seek? Because today, more than any time in history, you have to go looking for virtuous and lovely things. The other stuff will find you. Every time you turn on the radio, every time you take a risk at a motion picture, you're going to be bombarded by that which is not virtuous, that which is not lovely, that which is not praiseworthy. So you're going to have to go seeking for that which is. You've promised you'd do that. Joining this church, you promised you would do that. How are you doing? If you surround yourself with that which is lovely, beautiful, the music of Bach, Handel, who said he saw the hand of God when he wrote Messiah, Brahms, who said, in my inspired moments, God gives me directly the music to write. Mozart said, essentially, I hold the pen, and God tells me what to write. Irving Berlin said that about God Bless America. Rodgers and Hammerstein have said that. Janice Cat Perry have said that. God's Spirit lives in inspired music. Are you surrounded with that music? You have it. You have all the inspired music of all time right here. It's all right there. You also have all of the inspired music from the dark side, and there's lots of it. And it's good stuff. Satan would certainly not use second-class musicians to preach his gospel. He has very compelling musicians preaching his gospel. How do you know whether it's from the light side or the dark side? I'll tell you how to know. It's in the book of Moroni. Moroni tells us in chapter 7, "For behold, my brethren, it is given unto you to judge." You'll know the difference between good and evil, but you'll be able to tell the difference between night and day. It's going to be that easy, and you will have perfect knowledge. That's quite a statement. "For behold, the Spirit of Christ is given to every man, that he may know good from evil. And I will now show you the way." Here it is. "For everything which inviteth to do good and to persuade us to believe in Christ. It is sent from the power and gift of Christ. Wherefore you may know with a perfect knowledge it is from Christ. But whatsoever thing persuadeth men to do evil, and believe not in Christ, and deny him, and serve not God, then you may know with a perfect knowledge that it is of the devil. For after this manner doth the devil work. For he persuadeth no man to do good, not one. Neither do his angels, neither do those who subject themselves to it. Your job, because you have come to the earth with the most important destinies of human history. You've been saved for this time. This is the most important time of human history, and you are the generals who will destroy him in the last moments. You cannot afford to let the powers of darkness through music, film, motion pictures, all of that. You can't afford it. You must stay enveloped in a shield of light which comes from inspired music. If you do that, you will be able to withstand anything, and your divine destiny will be fulfilled. I'm going to conclude by going back over to Mr. Beckstein, and I'm going to sing a song by Sandy Ruckinich, a friend of mine. You will not notice, you won't know the melody or the harmonies, but you'll know the words because they are your words. They're the words you promised when you joined this church, that you would seek after that which is noble. While I am singing this, I want you to give yourself an examination. How are you doing? If you were asked to say, do I get an A on seeking virtuous things? Do I get a B, C, D? I want you to ask yourself and promise you that if you're getting an A in this, nothing will stop you from your destiny. I bear you witness that he lives. He, the Prince of Darkness, he lives. I have a special witness for that. And I also know that our Father in heaven lives. They are motivated by great power, hate and love, light and dark. Love is stronger. Light is stronger. If you seek after virtuous and lovely things, I bear you my witness, he will bless you. In his name, Jesus Christ. Amen.
If there is anything virtuous, if there is anything lovely, if there is anything which is of good report, we seek after these things. If there is anything virtuous, if there is anything lovely, if there is anything which is of good report, we seek after these things. We believe all things, we hope all things, we have endured many things, and hope to be able to endure all things. If there is anything virtuous, if there is anything lovely, if there is anything which is of good report, we seek after these things. If there is anything which is of good report, we seek after these things. We seek after these things.